Hey guys, and welcome to Storytime with Jester. Tonight we'll be continuing the saga from my novel, The Book of Prophecies. We'll be picking up from where we left off last week, chapter 27. Andor's Journal. Sunday, 49/12/28. After communing with St. Columba, I have summoned together a group to go out and search for the lesser wands. Eric will go, posing as a scout, while using the wand to find the others. Free Day, 52/12/28. No word from Eric. Tomorrow marks the first of the new year. May St. Columba be with him and his companions. Water Day 4/12/29. Still no sign from Eric. I must keep faith that all is well and he is safe. Free Day 6/12/29. Word from Osnaburg is that the day is approaching that we will see the signing of a peace treaty. I leave tomorrow for Osnaburg. Earth Day 7/12/29. The proceedings were marred by an assassination attempt on the diplomats. Several prominent figures were killed trying to stop the assassins. Free Day 7/12/29. I leave today for home. The whole of Osnaburg is in a state of shock after yesterday's events. Earth Day 8/12/29. The expedition has returned with all 5 rods. Everyone has returned safe. Praise be to St. Columba. I summon my comrades. Chapter 27. When everyone said their goodbyes after the battle with the demoness, Thorfinn and his group stayed together. The treasure map he had received from his draw of the magic deck pointed to a possible dragon horde somewhere in the Sarjaka. The brothers Rumnaheim were eager at the treasure possibilities, and a rune written in Elvish hinted at a legendary elven sword piqued Valiant's interest. Miranda wasn't sure what she thought about the idea of fighting a dragon, but was so enamored with Thorfinn as to ignore her trepidation for now. One would have thought Thorfinn would be the most excited with a chance of adding a head to the mantle of the inn in Fagrath's fortress, but he was not. No, in fact, he thought of himself as a fraud. The 2 dragons he had slain thus far were largely due to the fact that they were asleep when he encountered them. Most would count this as a great fortune, but not Thorfinn. What Thorfinn wanted, more than anything, was victory over a great foe. A good, clean, righteous victory. He almost had one against the Spider Queen, but Eric took that from him. Beat him to her, and for what? She escaped. It would not have been so had he gotten to her first. It will not be like the other 2 before when he faces off with the dragon of the map. He will make sure it has its wits about it before he pounds it into submission with Kempdod. Kempdod, his massive magical hammer. Magic. He once feared and swore to destroy any that he found, to kill those that were born of it. Even now he uses it to defeat his foes. What a fraud. Miranda. Had he met her earlier in his life, she would be dead by now of his own hand. Now they are companions, not of the sort most of his comrades think. Even Eric thinks she is with him. That pleases him, knowing Eric's feelings for her. He must admit she is stunning to behold, but whatever emotions he might have developed for her were quickly squashed when he found out she wove magic. He knows her feelings for him, but won't say anything to allow her to move on. What a fraud. A copper for your thoughts, Miranda's voice woke Thorfinn out of his deep self-assassination. Just thinking about the beast we will probably encounter at the end of the map, he replied. You're not worried, are you? She asked, hearing uncertainty in his voice. I would think, after defeating the big red worm in the Helixvalet, that nothing would give you pause. Worried? Nay, he lied. In fact, if it hadn't been for the Titan and the rest of the warriors in their group, he would have likely perished in that furnace. What kind do you think it will be? A white like the pair we faced in the Jarl's lair? He didn't respond. His thoughts were on the red worm she spoke of. It was far greater than any he had encountered before. Fearsome it was atop its mound of treasure, but apparently they had come upon it while it was sleeping, for it didn't seem to have been waiting for them. The cavern that contained it was much too small for a serpent the size of that one. Its actions were restrained as a result, so its full attack capabilities were limited. The group, which had numbered 14, spread out and surrounded it so as not to all be susceptible to its fiery breath at once, and to gain attacks from all sides. It proved to be quite vulnerable on its flanks, as it was unable to utilize its wings to full effect. Thorfinn stayed lost in thought for several hours, up until Valian discovered the entrance marked on the map. A large boulder blocked the entrance, so Thorfinn and Tharuik, with the help of their magical girdles, moved the 8,000-pound rock with relative ease. Their nostrils were immediately assaulted with the smell of sulfur. "Aldenari Koth," Tharuik said. Thorfinn looked at him with a quizzical glance. "Fire dragon." "Fire dragon," Miranda translated, understanding the language of the dwarves. Sorry about that. Tharuik gathered the group near and, using his ring, protected them against fire. Miranda and Valian then cast spells to render them all invisible. After following the passage depicted on the map, they came to a large cavern lit only by a red glow emanating from a lava stream that cut the cavern in two. The temperature here was sweltering, causing the group to quickly shed the fur coats they had donned to protect them from the freezing cold of the Sarachaka. It was as if furs were appearing out of nowhere as they became visible once removed and discarded. Across the lava stream, the group could make out a large mound dominating the centermost portion of the enormous cavern. It gave off a scarlet radiance as it seemed to reflect the light from the lava stream. Here and there, parts of the mound seemed to sparkle and twinkle. Scanning to the top of the mound, Miranda's eyes were drawn to what looked to be a more concentrated area of the radiance. She thought the light was playing tricks on her as part of the mound floated away from the hole and then fell like sparkling rain. Then her eyes came into focus, and the realization of what she was seeing overtook her, and she let out a gasp, which broke the silence that existed heretofore. Suddenly a large cloud of steam erupted from the lava stream, obscuring their vision into the rest of the cavern as if they were in a bank of fog. Before Miranda could warn the others, a large tentacle-like appendage swept through the fog, knocking some down and launching others into the air. Scattered as they now were, they were out of the invisible radius afforded them by Valian's spell. Tharuik was the first to recover, launching his hammer through the steam and praying it found scales. He raised his hand, and the hammer returned to him. Thorfinn, not wanting the dwarf to steal his thunder, launched his own hammer. He listened intently for the clap of thunder that always accompanied a successful strike, but none was to come. It was then he realized what his pride had concealed. His hammer was not a returning thrower like the dwarf's. A loud crackling sound filled the air, and the hair on the back of his neck stood up as a lightning bolt streaked through the steam and narrowly missed Valian as he deftly dodged its electrical death, landing on his feet as nimbly as a cat while retaining his grip on his sword. How he was targeted when he was still invisible both intrigued and worried him. Glareath, having neither magic, hammer, nor a means of flying over the lava stream, found himself useless at the moment. Miranda just lay there, gripped by fear, unable to cast even the basic of spells. The steam started to dissipate, allowing the group to finally get a glimpse past the lava stream and a chance to target their foe. However, all that was to be seen was a huge mound of coins and a smattering of gems. Sticking out of the mound, Thorfinn could make out the handle of Kipdod. Standing between him and his prized weapon, however, was the lava stream. "We must find a way to cross," Thorfinn yelled to his companions. Almost before the last word left his lips, Valian conjured up an ice bridge over the lava stream. "Quickly," Valian urged, "before it melts!" Valian was already on the bridge when he gave the warning, although no one could see him as his invisibility was still intact. Thorfinn wasted no time in crossing the ice bridge and made a beeline for his hammer. The brothers Rumnaheim were not far behind and split up once across. Two gigantic wings appeared on the outer perimeter of the foursome and swept in, buffeting the two dwarves back in the center and knocking them off their feet in the process. Thorfinn had retrieved his hammer and joined the dwarves and the invisible elf. Valian, adept in the art of concealment, recognized the advanced spell that cloaked their foe and was beginning to track its movements, when he noticed high up in the air an amber glow. It was small at first, but then grew larger, illuminating the dragon's gaping maw and evil eyes. The dragon unleashed its fiery breath at the group. Just as a roaring ball of fire was about to engulf them, a hemisphere of ice sprang up, shielding them from the inferno that was to be their death. A sudden collision of such tremendous heat against the thick ice created another cloud of fog as both became naught. Out of the fog streaked two hammers, their course being directed at the source of the fireball. Both found their marks almost simultaneously. Unlike the last time Thorfinn let Kempdod fly, this time a loud clap of thunder sounded, and a shock-wave of force overtook the four warriors, knocking them to the ground. Stunned but for a moment, they quickly jumped to their feet, prepared for battle. This time Kempdod lay but a few feet from Thorfinn's reach. He quickly retrieved it and attacked the still-stunned dragon, swinging it furiously at the enormous target that was the dragon's body. The dragon's skull was on fire from the two direct hits of the hammers, and was thus slow in reacting to the succession of blows delivered to it by Thorfinn and Thorfinn. Valian and Galeath dealt their own damage to the dragon, but it was the hammer blows that struck the dragon with the force of giants that finally brought down the ancient beast. Thorfinn went to work collecting his prize, eager to mount it in the dragon's head inn. The others, except Miranda, went to work on the mound of treasure. True to legend, the elven sword Valian thought might be here was indeed. It was said to have the capabilities of slaying evil outsiders. That could come in handy back in his home in the Vressos. Miranda finally was able to shake off the fear that had gripped her during the entire encounter with the dragon. She hadn't felt like that since Mazaron. There her journey to freedom began. She looked up to see Thorfinn standing atop the treasure mound, triumphantly holding the severed head of the ancient red dragon. The smile on his face, one she had grown to find comfort in, no longer giving her solace. Chapter 28. Spring had just arrived when Jovan received Andor's summons. It was matter of fact, but not urgent. Andor did ask him to leave Kelwyn behind, as this was not of the adventuring type of meeting. His journey through the gnarled woods was uneventful as he made his way to Sanctuary. Sanctuary, Andor's fortress, was nestled between the Oit and Vernway rivers west of the gnarled woods. It also contained Andor's temple to St. Columba. He realized he had never actually seen inside the fortress. The closest he had come was the inn where they had been attacked by the agents of the slavers. The road led up to the only entrance to the castle, a huge iron gate. Protruding out from this gate was two 10-foot-high stone walls. Flanking the walls were two 20-foot-tall towers, each manned by a single guard. The wall holding the gate and connecting the two towers was 15 feet high, as were the walls leading to two small 40-foot square towers on the main fortress. The fortress itself was a perfect square, with 40-foot-high walls cornered by 50-foot-high square towers, all with battlements. When he was close enough, he was hailed by one of the guards and asked to identify himself. As Andor was already expecting him, the iron gate was quickly raised. The gatehouse consisted of the outer and inner baileys, the latter being but a mere 10-foot wide passage with two sets of huge double iron doors at either end. The portion of the passage in the main wall also was protected by an iron gate like the one at the entrance. The passage walls themselves were lined with arrow slits, and the entire ceiling was dotted with murder holes. Once through the gatehouse, he found himself in one large courtyard, which was the entirety of what the fortress walls protected. On either side against the walls were stables and smithies. Taking center stage was a gigantic mess hall named the Cudgel. The Temple of St. Columba sat opposite the gatehouse and had its own 50-foot-high round tower, which was also part of the outer fortress wall. Andor had been alerted upon Jovan's arrival, and therefore met him as he entered the courtyard. The two embraced as old friends do, and then Jovan reached under his cloak and produced a gift for Andor. "Elvish wine," Jovan said as he handed it to him. "I think there be no better a time than now to get started on it," Andor invited. "Shall we?" He motioned Jovan to follow, and led him to the temple, where they made their way down to the lower level. In preparation for this gathering, Andor converted the circular meditation room into a meeting hall. A large oak table stood in the center, with green velvet chairs all around. The table was set with fine crystal taken from Andor's study, which he had acquired on his adventures. He picked up 2 crystal goblets, opened the elvish wine, and poured. Handing one to Jovan, he said, "I'm glad you were the first to arrive. I've got something to show you, and it's only fitting that you see it before the others." Once again he motioned for Jovan to follow. He made sure to take the bottle along with them. The large hall, which joined the area that they were in to the cell block, was a gallery of sorts. It held all sorts of trophies, all copies, of course, of St. Columba. Sconces lined the walls on either side, each bearing a lit torch. Down the center of the hall were 3 support columns. Andor stopped at the center one and said, "Take that torch, will you?" "I would, but as you see," he lifted up the bottle of elvish wine in one hand and the half-full goblet in the other, smiling. As he did, as requested, Andor added, "Oh, and pull down on the sconce." Jovan looked at him quizzically, only to receive a nod and a smile. He again did as requested. As he did so, a secret panel hidden in the wall opened, revealing a rough-hewn passage. "Shall we?" Andor said, almost giddy, and stepped in. The passage went on for about a mile, and as it finally ended, Jovan could feel a slight breeze. They stepped out of the passage and into an enormous cavern, the mouth of which Jovan could tell was well hidden by a boulder and shrubs. Looking around the empty cavern, Jovan could only ask the obvious question, "What is this?" "A stables, if you will, for our hippogriffs, when we meet together in sanctuary from now on," Andor said, his face beaming in pride, revelation, and anticipation. Andor's joy seemed to be lost on Jovan, for he didn't give the reaction Andor was hoping for. "We might want to head back in case the others arrive," Jovan said, much to Andor's chagrin. Andor reluctantly relented, drowning his disheartened spirit in the rich undertones of the elvish wine. By the time they made the mile-long trek back to Sanctuary, the others, Andor was informed, had indeed started arriving. When he and Jovan entered the meeting hall, several seats were occupied. Marikai and Xavier were sharing stories, while Hawkeye had just found a decanter of wine and was pouring 3 glasses. Andor, still clutching the bottle of elvish wine, and Jovan joined them at the table. Their rears had no sooner touched the velvety cushions of the chairs when the curtain was flung open and in strode Thorfinn, with Miranda close behind. Thorfinn had somehow obtained a tankard of ale, which he had already half finished when he entered the hall. As he took a seat, his large frame looked out of place in the softness of the velvet. Miranda, normally clingy when it came to Thorfinn, took a seat at the other end of the table from him. 2 empty seats flanked her. 30 minutes passed quickly as they caught up on missed time. Andor stood up, ready to address the group, when the curtain opened again and in stepped Eric and a man cloaked in midnight blue, wearing a rune pendant around his neck. Andor came up to Eric, and the 2 friends embraced. The rest of the room fell silent, one by one, upon seeing the cloaked figure. They all stared as if they had just seen a ghost. All eyes, except Eric and Andor's, followed him as he walked to the end of the table and took a seat beside Miranda. Marikai was the first to break the silence. "Eric, are you going to introduce your friend?" "What for?" Eric replied. "You all know Devon." Chapter 29. After the initial shock of discovering their friend and comrade Devon was alive and well, they all surrounded him and welcomed him back to the land of the dead. Welcomed him back from the land of the dead. Hawkeye, Devon's closest friend of the group, looked at Andor and said, "Is this your doing?" Before Andor could deny having anything to do with Devon being brought back to life, Devon responded, "No, he had nothing to do with it." Devon's voice had a hollowness to it. His reply to Hawkeye's question almost had an air of contempt to it, as if he somehow felt Andor, or even St. Columba himself, was incapable of such a feat. "I was on my way to my keep when I was attacked by a demonic hit squad from that spider bitch," he continued, with his words dripping of venom. As I lay there on the ground, surrounded by my own blood, I heard a voice. It was not audible, nor was it inside my head like the voice of the demon leader before I died. It was as if the very fabric of the universe itself spoke. It asked me but one question. Do you want revenge? As he said this, his hand moved up to his pendant. His lips started moving in a silent utterance. Then both hands reached to his cowl and pulled it back, revealing his face. Scars still marked around his eyes, but his pupils, once pools of white, now contained dark voids of midnight. Not only did he bring me back to life, he restored my sight that I might better serve him, he said, then pulled the cowl back up on his head. The rest of the group was all too familiar with the demons he mentioned, as they too had suffered assassination attempts, but had managed to either thwart or defeat death. As each one shared their stories, several calls to go after the Spider Queen came to the lips of some in the group. Every purpose is established by counsel, Andor quieted, and with good advice, make war. Trust me, she will get what is due her, but we are gathered here today for another purpose. Miranda, he signaled to their raven-haired companion. She arose and went around the table, placing a ring in front of each of them. As she did this, Andor continued, with the attempts on all of our lives, it is apparent that our identities are not safe. I asked Miranda to craft for us 9 rings. Do not place them yet on your fingers, as the magic is not yet complete, he warned. With our success over the years, we have acquired much wealth, and as a result, has each gone our own way. From time to time, however, there will be a need for us to assemble as a group to defeat evil wherever it arises. Whether summoned by myself or one greater than me, I fear our feats may not go unnoticed by those wishing our demise. Hence, the rings. When we go on the ventures, it would be wise of us to conceal our true identities so that we may safely return to the lives we have each carved for ourselves. What I need each of you to do before placing the ring on your finger is to envision what you would like your appearance to be when we act as a group. Once you have that image firmly in your head, then place the ring on your finger and the magic will be complete. Let me demonstrate. Andor took the ring given to him and placed it on his finger. The humble priest in the brown robes of St. Columba was instantly changed to be seen by the rest of the group as an armor-clad warrior with a winged helm, brown tunic, and red cloak. The sudden transformation took everyone aback, save for Xavier and Miranda, of course. After a few moments, the rest placed their rings on. Hawkeye's brown studded leather armor, gray fur cloak, and blue breeches with dark brown boots were replaced with tan leather armor, light brown leggings and shoes, and a green cloak. His dark brown hair and beard was now the gray of an older man. Jovan was more subtle in his changes, except for his face. His brown breeches became brown leggings, his leather armor vest shortened, and a green tunic appeared where none was before. His green cloak and hood was gone, and now he only wore a brown coif. Where he normally wore a beard on his face, he was now clean-shaven. The oak leaf clusters that symbolized his ranger status were gone. Xavier, normally dressed in a violet tunic, black boots, lavender breeches, and a midnight blue hooded cloak. He changed to that of an old wizard with long white hair and beard, light tan robes, light brown boots, brown breeches, a dark blue cloak, and a floppy brown wizard's hat with red hatband. Thorfinn, who usually dressed only in a brown loincloth showing off his darkened bronze skin, his fur-trimmed dragon-hide cloak, and horned helmet, made a change no one was expecting. Far to the northeast in the northern tundra lives a fair-skinned race of warlike barbarians. Thorfinn's mother was from the steppes, but his father was from the tundra. Thorfinn got his looks from his mother, but with the ring his appearance became that of a fair-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed barbarian from the tundra. He wore a chain-mail shirt, blue breeches, brown fur-trimmed boots, and he altered his cloak to show a small dragon's head as a pauldron, the fur of his cloak to be that of a wolf pelt with the wolf's head in the center of his chest. His girdle and gauntlets completed the look. Marikai had the most drastic and elaborate change of the lot. He normally wore a white surcoat over a chain armor shirt and wore black gauntlets and black and silver greaves. His black and silver helm usually had the visor up, showing his mustached face. He changed to that of a double surcoat, white underneath, the outer layer tan and trimmed in olive green, and embroidered with vines and leaves. Strapped to his chest were 2 daggers. He wore a black cuirass with green pauldrons in the shape of serpent heads. His helm was green and was in the shape of a serpent head. The visor showed grinning teeth. He had a short sword hanging at the waist, and his gauntleted hands held a greatsword. Devon just pocketed his ring. He declined to choose at the moment, content to stay garbed in his light blue robes and midnight blue cloak with cowl. Miranda also chose not to use the ring as of now. Her long lavender dress, split down the sides, showed off her shapely legs. She wore a red jeweled tiara and sandals that strapped up to her knees. Before Eric donned his ring, he asked, "What shall we call this secret society?" "I had already given it some thought," Andor replied. "I toyed with names like Defenders or Avengers, but I settled on—" He paused, scanning the room before continuing. "If nobody has any objections, the Protectors." Again he scanned the room, and after a minute of no objections, Eric rose and said, "Protectors it is, then," and slipped the ring on his finger. Instantly his full-plate armor, with red-trimmed blue cloak and shield bearing the crown insignia of the kingdom of Folkreach, transformed into that of a golden cuirass, black gauntlets and greaves, and gousset covering the arms and legs. His floor-length tabard was red, as was his cloak. His bassinet was gold with a red visor. His shield was red with a large white P representing the Protectors. "While I admire what you are doing here," Devon said, addressing Andor in particular, but the group as a whole, "I will not be joining your Protectors. My new comrades and I are about to depart on another mission to the Cursed Desert. Thorfinn," he turned his attention to the barbarian, "we could use you and your hammer. Your tracking abilities would also be a great benefit to us. What say you?" "What will I be tracking in a desert?" Thorfinn asked, not seeing much glory in trekking through a big mound of sand. "A pair of assassins," Devon replied. Then, seeing the lack of interest on his face, he added, "And infamy if we kill them." "Infamy?" Thorfinn questioned. "Worldwide," Devon assured. "Then what are we waiting for?" Thorfinn declared as he slammed his mug on the table and stood up. The two said their farewells and left the room. "So then," Andor addressed those remaining, "this is it, the Protectors. Eric, the Golden Avenger. Jovan, the Green Ranger. Hawkeye, the Green Arrow. Marikai, Blade. Xavier, the Wizard. Miranda, Shadowcat. Myself, the Cleric." Raising his glass high in the air, he declared, "The Protectors! May we long serve the land and its inhabitants." The others raised their glasses and declared in unison, "The Protectors!" And that, my friends, is where we will conclude tonight's reading. I hope you enjoyed it as thoroughly as I enjoyed reading it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the bell icon so that you can be notified of when I post more videos. Also, make sure that you share this with all your friends and leave comments in the comments section, because I do love those, and then we'll respond to those as quickly as possible. So until next time, and as always, see you soon.